lucky enough to have one of the columnists, one of the writers, lead NBA writer for the Washington Post, Ben Golliver, joining us now. Ben, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great here in San Francisco, getting ready for Warriors-Lakers tonight. Steph versus LeBron. Doesn't get much better than that in the NBA.
Oh, it is so good. So you're in San Francisco, you live in L.A., you write for the Washington Post. Do I got that right?
You got it right. I'm the L.A. bureau, and I appreciate everything you said about the paper.
Oh, well, it's great. I grew up reading it, back in the day with Wilbon and Kornheiser before they were famous TV guys, and they actually wrote great columns. And obviously Jason Reed and Mike Wise and all these guys that have been there. And you're certainly following in their footsteps. And this is fun. I was just looking at your most recently penned column, little excerpt from your NBA Post-Up Weekly newsletter, and it reminded me from 15 to 18, LeBron's Cavaliers faced off with the Warriors every single year, and it was must-watch, can't-miss TV. I don't know if it's going to be as wild and hairy as it was back in the day, but I'm sure hoping so, man. Do you think we can have a series here that goes 7 games, or the Warriors just obviously going in as the favorites that much stronger than the Lakers here?
Well, I think this is going to be a really interesting series. It's a tricky one to handicap. I do think there's a chance it goes the distance. I think everybody on both sides, though, is a little bit older and wiser. You didn't see a lot of bulletin board material coming out either way after these teams clinched. I think there was a lot of healthy mutual respect between them. And like you said, this is LeBron versus Steph Part 5, and we haven't seen it in 5 years. And you think about all the things that have happened in those 5 years. I mean, the Lakers missed the playoffs, then they won the title. The Warriors missed the playoffs, then they won the title. And yet these teams keep having misconnections. So it kind of feels like, well, maybe this will be the last time we get to see it, right? I mean, LeBron's 38. Steph is 35, still playing at a very, very high level, but the breaks just haven't fallen the right way until this year, and I think it's going to be a fantastic series. The fact that it's in the second round, maybe that takes a little bit of the luster off. It's not a finals matchup, but you go back to the 2016 and 2017 finals. Those series averaged more than 20 million people watching throughout the series. That's the highest number the NBA had since the post-Jordan era. So I expect there to be a lot of eyeballs on this series as the NBA's 2 biggest stars go head-to-head.
A little bit different, I guess, all the games being on the West Coast. This game's going to tip off, I believe, at 10 Eastern time tonight. So
stay up for it. It's going to be worth it.
I agree. I mean, you have Steph coming off that epic 50-point game in Game 7 against Sacramento. LeBron was fantastic. And we had the debate here in studio. Some of us believe that LeBron has to go for 30 a night. I'm of the belief that you need a triple-double type performance, like classic LeBron performances to lead this team. But they need Anthony Davis to get big. I mean, they need those 30-point games from Anthony Davis, or they're not going to have a shot in this series. Would you agree?
Well, I think what you saw in the first round from the Lakers was LeBron pacing himself, both within games but across the series. Like, look at that Game 5 in Memphis. He played a good number of minutes, but it didn't feel like he was going all out, right? He's 38. He understands his limitations. His outside shot's been a little bit shaky. Sometimes that's a sign of fatigue throughout the playoffs. And so what he's trying to do is pick and choose his spots for maximum impact. And I think you saw that in Game 4, the overtime victory, when he's going to the basket hard a couple of times and bringing that victory home. And then also in the closeout game, the Lakers really stepped up against the Grizzlies. And so I think if you're the Lakers, what you want to try to do here is slow the Warriors down. The Warriors were playing this breakneck style against the Sacramento Kings in the first round. And I think you're trying to conserve LeBron's energy, maximize his impact by just, bringing this pace down just a little bit. And then, of course, you want to win the battle inside like you're describing. Anthony Davis was a defensive monster against the Memphis Grizzlies the whole way through. 20-plus blocks in that series. And that's going to be a huge adjustment for Golden State because they were playing a Sacramento team that really didn't have any interior defense. You saw how easy it was for Golden State to just cut up that Sacramento team in Game 7. They're getting all these layups, going to the basket. Steph Curry's, doing Ringling Brothers dribbling acts through all their defense, right? They're getting stuff really easy against Sacramento. It's not going to be so easy inside against the length and athleticism of Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and Jared Vanderbilt. It's a long, athletic front line. And I think Golden State's offense is really going to have to adjust by taking more threes and making more threes. I think both Andrew Wiggins and Klay Thompson have to kind of step up to offset what LA's got going on inside.
What's another X factor for Golden State? I look at these rebounding numbers for Kevon Looney. I mean, it's insane. He's averaging 15 rebounds per game in the postseason. He had 3 games with 20 or more rebounds against the Kings. Obviously, we know what Jordan Poole has the potential to be, but he's so wildly and it's maddening to watch him play, how inconsistent he can be at times. But you have Steph, you have Clay, you have Draymond. Who's that fourth wheel? Who's that X factor for Golden State?
Well, you mentioned Kevon Looney. I usually call him the fifth Beatle because he's doing all the dirty work, the rebounding, the defense, and he's not going to get the attention of Golden State's kind of premier star-level guys, right? And you look at the other players, whether it's Draymond, Steph, Clay, all future Hall of Famers, Andrew Wiggins, a former number 1 pick, and then you've got Looney. But if you go back to that Sacramento series, he was their second best player across that series. As crazy as that sounds. Obviously, Steph was the MVP, right? But Looney was so consistent and dominant inside, and his size and force is going to be really important to help neutralize Anthony Davis. If you're the Warriors, your game plan is let's, kind of dare LeBron to shoot from outside because he hasn't been shooting the ball that well. Let's kind of make him prove it. The San Antonio Spurs used to do that, 10 years ago. Say, hey, LeBron, see if you can make jumpers against us. I think Golden State's going to take a similar tactic there. But you also want to push Anthony Davis as far away from the hoop as possible. You want to turn him into a jump shooter. You want to get him, doing fadeaways and staying off of the glass himself. And I think that, Looney and Draymond Green, that's going to be, the matchup they're trying to use against Anthony Davis to own the paint inside. But, that's easier said than done. Anthony Davis at his best moments during this postseason was the alpha dog for the Lakers. We've been waiting years and years to be able to say that, right? I mean, it's always been LeBron's team the whole way. And against the Grizzlies, we saw LeBron take a step back and Anthony Davis really assert himself. And it was actually more of a collective effort for the Lakers with Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell, these other guys stepping up. But I do think if the Lakers are going to win this series, Anthony Davis is going to have to be the best player on the court 4 times.
I couldn't agree more with that. And, it's funny, you talk about the fifth Beatle. We're just looking for a third scorer for the Lakers, right? Whether it's Russell or Reeves or Rui. It's living here in Los Angeles and seeing what the Lakers have done. I don't care what happens in this series. Where they were 2-3 months ago to where they are now is a modern day miracle. Was it just health, or was it one of these late season moves that got them to where they are right now?
Well, I always joke watching this team that sometimes it's hard to really give them their credit and their due because in the back of my mind, I'm still kind of traumatized by the last 2 years of basketball they played. The Russell Westbrook experience was just awful in Los Angeles for the Lakers, that is. He had more success with the Clippers, and you can parse out the blame however you want, whether it was the Lakers trading for Westbrook, whether it was Westbrook's play himself, whether it was sort of a poor fit between Westbrook and LeBron, but ultimately it didn't matter. It was really ugly, ineffective basketball. And making that trade at the deadline, it improved their depth, it improved their bench, it improved their defense, and it just made for a more natural pecking order on offense because now you have room for a guy like Austin Reeves to really step up and be an impact player. He's been sensational really all season long. He's going to get a gigantic bag this summer, by the way. He's getting paid. There's no doubt about it. But he's been great and reliable in the postseason, especially for a young guy without a ton of experience. You watch him play, you would never know that this is sort of his first real taste of it. So the Lakers are just much more balanced than they were previously. The personalities are on track. They seem a lot happier and looser, don't they? And then they responded to the moment against the Grizzlies brilliantly. When they needed to, crank up to 6th gear and do it, they did it. And that was a big problem for the Lakers over these last 2 years. It seemed like every time they got into a crunch time situation, some sort of a disaster would happen. So they've really remade their team. And I think for Golden State, it's a good challenge for them to kind of have to wrap their minds around, right? Because, you play them earlier in the season, but this is not the same group, and you're really going to have to adjust and do your film study and get ready during a quick turnaround from that Game 7 on Sunday to kind of wrap your mind around what the Lakers look like right now.
You talk about the Austin Reeves contract getting a big bag. It probably won't be the size of Jordan Poole's bag that he got, but the rise from, I don't want to say from nothing, but kind of the sudden rise was very similar. What are we looking at? We looking at $60, $70, $80 million here for Austin Reeves, most likely?
Yeah, I I think that higher number it sounds about right. I mean, look, if you're the Lakers, you want to make him a huge priority. If I told you you've got to choose one, D'Angelo Russell or Austin Reeves, I think probably at the time of the trade, people would have said, well, maybe you need Russell as that point guard. I would take Reeves, even if it gets really expensive. I just think he's a great fit with LeBron, incredible character kid. Just every single night he brings great effort, super, super high IQ. Two-way player, very effective defensively. He's so good at drawing fouls. To me, he needs to be the Lakers' number one off-season priority. But you mentioned Jordan Poole, and, you could put him in that X-factor category. I think it's an open question for Golden State. How many minutes can he handle at this point, right? Because it's been so many wild layups, missed jumpers, obviously some turnover issues. He was falling out of bounds during Game 6, and he's struggling on defense. I mean, that's sort of, his reputation is not being the world's greatest defender either. He's going to have to kind of turn things around and pick his game up in this series because they are going to need some bench scoring. The Lakers have some depth now. They've rebalanced their roster, and Golden State's going to need to get a little bit more bench production than it did in round one.
Denver looking pretty good, up 2-0. It was funny. We were talking about Jokic and how good and how unstoppable he is, despite the fact he looks like a rec league player at the Y or at Bay Club out there at times. But either one of these teams is going to have to most likely be playing Denver in the Western Conference Finals. Do you still handicap this for us here? Are we still thinking Denver is the best team?
Well, Denver didn't come into the playoffs with a lot of buzz. I think there was more attention around other teams, but everyone's really coming around to how good they are when they watch those first two games against Phoenix, right? Because what was so impressive, they won the two games in two totally different fashions, right? Game one, all the three-pointers are going. They're playing super fast. They just blitz Phoenix off the court. Game two is super ugly, low scoring. Nobody can hit a shot, but then Jokic just takes over. And like you're saying, the greatest rec league player of all time, just absolutely pounding DeAndre Ayton inside with all these shots that are just basically unstoppable and so unconventional that it's really hard for defenses to adjust. That's the mark of a title contender. If you can win fast, you can win slow, you can win on good days and bad days. That means you're somebody that has to be taken seriously. They are setting up for a couple of huge advantages. First of all, if they can take care of Phoenix quickly, let's say they win that series in 5 games, right? If Golden State and the Lakers go to 7, that's going to be a massive rest advantage for Denver going into that Western Conference Finals, right? And second, they're going to be at home at altitude where they've been excellent all year. I mean, they're a much more imposing team at home there in Denver with the mile-high atmosphere and the crowd than they are on the road. And so I think you add those two things together, and they might very well be favored, even if, the bigger star like Steph or LeBron would be coming from the other side of the bracket. So we're looking ahead a little bit here, but I do think that the key point is Denver has put themselves on the map here over the last week, and they deserve to be there.
Yeah, what a roster put together by former president and general manager Tim Connelly, who's moved on to the Minnesota Timberwolves. All right, getaway question here for Ben Golliver. Should we be worried about the Boston Celtics? They didn't look great in that first round series against the Hawks. They obviously did win the series, and then they lose to James Harden and the Joel Embiid-less Sixers last night. What's your worry level for the Boston Celtics right now?
Well, I think they should be moderately worried, but it's so funny. I know you said you're in L.A. I mean, there's a lot of people who hate the Celtics in L.A., right? This season, it feels like Celtics fans hate the Celtics more than anybody from the outside ever could, because they've just been driven crazy by this team. As good as they are, they squander these leads late in games. They really rely too much on the three-point shot. That wasn't their problem in Game 1, but it's been an issue over the course of the season. And I think there's a lot of skepticism around first-year coach Joe Mazzulla in terms of, is he really ready for the moment? Last night he just lets James Harden isolate against Al Horford one-on-one and knock home a game-winning three-pointer, decides not to double even though P.J. Tucker's on the court. He didn't take a shot all night. Like, what are you doing? This is pretty basic stuff, and the Celtics overlooked it in that crucial moment. It really cost them the game. So I think that there's reasons for nerves here, but look, Philly's still shorthanded, no Joel Embiid. James Harden's not going to score 45 points every single game in this series. In fact, that was his best performance from a scoring standpoint since he even got traded to Philly. And then you have no clue what Embiid is going to look like if he does try to return, like is he going to be moving well or not. And I think everything really favors Boston. But they've got to get their shooters going. They have to continue to attack the paint against Philly's defense without Joel Embiid. And if they do that, they're going to be in good shape here. But they have a real knack for making life more difficult than it needs to be. We saw that in the first round against Atlanta. We saw that in last year's finals, right, where they're just kicking away the games late in those games against Golden State. And, it's a characteristic that scares you if you're a fan. It makes you nervous. But I think ultimately they've got enough talent to win this series.
All right, he is Ben Golliver from the Washington Post, going to be there with the Lakers and the Warriors tonight. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. Take care.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.